Right, so chapter 619, Banko and the Hwarang make their first relevant appearance in the story, cutting up some Yamazaki fodder. We also get a little insight on their goals in fighting the Yamazaki outside of them being colonizers trying to take over Korea, more specifically, Banko's interest in seeking Amuramasa. Now this video is not going to be about them because quite frankly, they don't do much and the Hwarang look like a sorry group of bums, they are not clean whatsoever. What I will be covering is the minuscule amount of information we do get from their appearance and how that connects to Gu getting stronger and progressing his character. And maybe perhaps just a teeny weeny chance of him getting his path, maybe, probably not, but we can hope. I'll also give a little insight on what I think his path could be with the little information we do have. So when the Hwarang show up, some Changsu looking dude is holding the banner that says Hwarang and a bunch of bullshit I can't pronounce, but essentially the banner has a phrase that, with my limited research with ChatGPT, doesn't have any direct translation to English and isn't a standard word, which means if you're not a native Korean speaker, it means fuck all because of languages having terms and phrases that are culturally specific concepts that only make sense to native speakers with cultural understandings of terms and phrases. I think it's called a lexical gap or something. Now that doesn't mean it can't be translated, it just means the translation is an interpretive translation of what the phrase could mean. The phrase is most likely meant to be rehearsed in a poetic rhythmic way, like a code or ideal the Hwarang recite. Now what it could potentially mean translated to English is Hwarang, the sun and the moon at the center of the world, something along those lines. Another translation from Korean to Chinese to English, yeah I know, convoluted, is a Hwarang who walks with the sun and moon standing firm at the center of the world. Editor's note. The translation came out like a chapter after. It says where the sun and the moon shine at the center of the world, so basically I precogged that shit and I was fucking right. Yeah. So what does this mean? I know you're probably thinking, it must be in reference to the moonlight style, so does that mean there's a sun style? Or something along those lines. And my thought on that is, I don't care. It could mean that there's another style, or what I think is more interesting, is that the moonlight sword is only half of the day and night cycle, meaning so far we've only seen Gu use half of it. Now you're probably thinking, it's reinforced that no one can get past the fourth sword up until Gu. And my response to that is, go fuck yourself. Now this is a conversation you can have, but I want to connect this phrase to something else. Now a lot of myths and legends have the sun and moon be counterparts to each other. Helios and Selene, Artemis and Apollo, Tsukuyomi and Amaterasu, and so on and so forth. The sun and moon are counterparts that come in a pair, yin and yang. Interestingly enough, the Hwarang have a concept of complementary pair through yang theory of dichotomy. The name Hwarang has the quality of yang, with Hwa meaning flower, the feminine component, and Rang meaning man, boy, or knight, having the masculine component. The Hwarang have this thought of beauty and strength from Hwa and Rang respectively, which is to be beautiful without effort and strong without force. The Hwarang strive for this balance between beauty and strength, with the two being harmonious. Now what does this have to do with Gu? He uses the moonlight style and dew wheels when utilizing it. As mentioned before, you can think there's a complementary sun style, or that it's a cycle, or that one sword is the moon, the other the sun. But I'm going to talk about a more fundamental application of the yang dichotomy and the underlying implications it has for Gu's character. An aspiration for the Hwarang is to be beautiful within without effort, to be strong without force. Verbatim. I think Gu does have these qualities, just jumbled around. Gu is strong. Monstrously strong. Unseriously strong even. Strong without a shed of effort. It's a recurring character trait of Gu. He's unserious but strong. Even his best efforts are commented as being half-assed. He's strong without effort. He's never put effort into anything in his life, and for the first time when he does put effort into something, he achieves something beyond what no master could even attempt to do. He did not only create a 5th sword, he went on to create 50. Even with the creation of the 50th sword, it still feels empty to me. It's not some sort of crazy awakening, but a further progressed version of the moonlight style. Interestingly enough, Pei-chan goes and makes comments about Gu's attacks, with the final and most important being that his sword is an empty husk. Gu's sword lacks intention, it lacks essence, it lacks conviction. Now if you watched my last video from a fucking year ago, I briefly talked about the idea of the Hwarang having intent behind the sword and commitment to the sword. The lack of intention behind the sword makes the sword empty. It makes the attack empty. I attribute his sword being empty to the sword lacking essence, lacking conviction. Now we may have seen one instance of Gu attempting to put intention behind his attack when he recites what his master says while cutting off Basement Hulk's hand. This Gu is uncharacteristically stoic and reserved. It feels like he's being intentional when he strikes. We already know how important conviction is in Lookism. A character is strong because of their conviction. A character can overcome with conviction. A character achieves path with conviction. But how does Gu find his conviction? Find his intent? Circling back to being strong without force, I think James actually gives a clue on this. James tells Gu that he is weak and that the king of the underworld should be able to use force when necessary. But this is the complete opposite of the Hwarang's philosophy. Gu must understand force, not because it makes him strong, but because he can be strong without it. That's half of the dichotomy being applied and a step closer to finding his conviction. Now what about the other half? How does he be beautiful within without effort? How does a sadist who enjoys harming others become internally beautiful? Now, there's this underlying effect of Gu's sadism, which is that he usually helps out another party involved. He saves people. Now Gu's character trait of enjoying harming others has low-key not been brought up since his introduction, but we'll ignore that because fuck you. Gu saves people from the first time he's been introduced and onward. He's been the final line of defense that the heroes benefit from. I don't really have a good explanation on how he becomes beautiful within without effort, besides just further aligning himself with the Hwarang's ideas more. I don't know. Chill on me. Let's just assume he becomes beautiful within because something Hwarang, something helps people. something something 5 virtues, he saves people and that's good type shit. Gu cares for people on a serious level. He goes out of his way to save his secret friends like Samuel and Taejin, and even prevents Daniel from getting himself killed for the sake of gun. Let's just say for now he gets his conviction. If you have any explanations on how he fully achieves it, be my guest and lay them out. But this Gu who is truly encompassing the Hwarang is different. He has found himself. He has conquered himself. He's become mighty. This understanding of the Hwarang becomes enlightenment for him. He's become a true harmonious person, being the sun and moon. Having this understanding gives him purpose, intent, and conviction. His sword is no longer hollow. Now let's get into path talk because that's what everyone cares about, right? How does one get a path? 3 things. Talent, experience, and conviction, with a few other caveats. Characters need to add their talent to the accumulated experience they've gained, but that alone won't achieve path. You need conviction added in there as well as a wall to overcome. I think we can all agree that Gu has the talent and experience, but how does he get the conviction? Well, that's kind of what the first half of the video was about. So anyways, Gu needs to hit a wall strong enough for him to be pushed into awakening his path. Now this guy needs a strong ass wall apparently because he hasn't put in any effort into anything in his entire life. I want to get into what I think Gu's path would be, and it's not a fucking formless swordless sword. That shit is stupid. Let's first look at what paths stem from, and to me it seems like it forms around the user's talent, such as copy for Jin Young and Johan. The ability to copy is the talent, and the copies that they copied are the experience they gained and used in their paths. Johan takes all his accumulated copies and creates an unavoidable single attack with an infinite amount of strike arcs. Jin Young's path is the essence of his copies, becoming a single cohesive accumulation of his copies into something unique to himself. Daniel also has the ability to copy, but his talent stems not from the copy ability but how he's able to copy, which is through his 5 senses. Through his senses, he's able to not only see the movements and copy them, but completely read the opponent's intentions as well as their weak spots. So what is Gu's talent and how would it manifest into a path? Well, I think his talent is his proficiency with the sword. The question is, why is he so proficient with the sword? And I think it stems from 2 things. 1, being his fundamental understanding of the sword. We already know about the teaching of anything can become a sword, and this comes from the fundamental understanding of the sword. He extends this understanding of what a sword is into other objects, which he is then able to use that object as a weapon. 2, being his situational awareness and the ability to use the environment to his advantage. Let's talk about how Gu fights outside of the conventional sword. Firstly, he has the capacity to understand the environment, what could be useful, what could mess up the opponent, what could be a weapon, what could be a sword. He gets a grasp on the environment and the situation and uses that to his advantage. I think the best display of this is his fight with Jinchul. He begins using a watch, which Jinchul recognizes as a weapon. While swinging at Jinchul, Gu is able to switch the watch out for a pin, which catches Jinchul off guard. When Jinchul catches that he switched weapons, Gu then once again switches to using a belt and starts swinging at Jinchul, which then Jinchul slips on the previously discarded watch, which opens him up to an attack from Gu. Now in this fight, we get an analysis from Jinchul and his comments on what's happening. He just tells us Gu is improvising and adapting his fighting style to the situation, with each of his actions being planned out in advance. Every action is intentional, from the object he picks up to his opponent stripping on something. He is never at a disadvantage because he can adapt to the situation. Anything in the environment becomes his weapon, from chopsticks to watches, from windshield wipers to bikes. He turns these objects into weapons through extending his fundamental understanding of a sword and projecting this understanding into them. On a side note, something else I want to talk about is Gu's ability to predict and read the strike arcs of swords. He intercepts Pei-chan's slash against Jae-gyun with a single Joy-Con, which completely nullifies Pei-chan's attack and doesn't even graze Jae-gyun. It could be like Daniel's path to a lesser extent and not absolute. I think this ability to read and predict sword arcs is also how he's able to achieve the 50 sword, by being able to predict where the sword arcs go without colliding. Okay, so we talked about how Gu is able to adapt his fighting style to the situation, how he's able to use the environment to his advantage, and how he's able to use objects in his environment as weapons, with his genius ability to apply his understanding of the sword to other objects. Granted, I think all the Hwarang in Lookism would have this ability, as the real life Hwarang have this philosophy that the sword is an extension of their body, which I briefly mentioned in my other video. So what would the natural progression of this be? What is beyond turning objects into weapons? How would he compete with Johan's infinite technique, or Daniel's reading deepest intentions, or Jin Young's apex of copy? I think Gu's path would stem from his fundamental understanding of the sword, and not just projecting it into an object he's holding, but to everything from where he stands to the environment itself. Every object in his vicinity has a sword arc that he can read. The world is his sword. Everything becomes a lethal threat, from the floor you stand on to the wall behind you. Everything becomes an advantage to Gu. The belief of the sword is beautiful, belief projected outward to everything. Effortlessly dangerous, effortlessly strong. He shines as the sun and the moon, at the center of the world.